Okay, here we go. Thank you for tuning in. This is Jeff with Jeff Outdoors, of course. I am currently indoors. Yes. So, we are talking about maple syrup making at home. Home meaning the average guy, Mr. Joe homeowner, who has a bunch of maple trees outside, is looking for a little project maybe with the kids, or hey, maybe you're a single man. You have a house, you got some maple trees, and you want to make some maple syrup. I say cheers and giddy up. I am sitting here on a Monday, what is this, January 11th, 2021. You know, back in the 80s and 90s, the year 2000 was more like a science fiction movie. It was almost like it didn't exist because it was so far in the future. And it's 2021. It's 2021. What the heck, man? Something ain't right. Anyways, maple syrup. I urge you to go back and watch my syrup making supplies videos and a couple of other videos I put out there regarding making maple syrup at home. If you're watching this video, there's no part 1, part 2, part 3. There's nothing in order here, so you can watch them at your leisure. But this particular video is for anybody getting into the part of maple season where you've gathered your sap, you have your pan, you're boiling the sap, and a lot of people might think that boiling maple sap is a set it and forget it type of game, but it's not. There's actually a lot to be doing when the sap is boiling, and that's something to be remember. So, what will you be doing when your sap is boiling? You could be sipping back on some turmeric tea. You could. You could drink some hard cider that you made this past fall and you've been fermenting. You could bottle that and have that and enjoy that. Or any various other types of things to do while the sap boils. You could write a book. You could listen to some music, watch a movie, weather permitting, of course, because you're going to want to be doing this outside. Boil your sap in the primary boiling pan outside. Do it outside. So, why would you do it outside? Yeah. Sap produces steam. You don't want to steam the inside of your house and have all your paint come off or get sticky, sugary sap all over your walls and ceiling. So that's why. So while your sap is boiling, you are going to be tending to the sap in such a way as to remove impurities. And how do we do that? We do that with a skimmer. A stainless steel skimmer found at many farm and or hardware stores, usually this time of year, January through March, where you will take this skimmer and you will skim off the impurities off the top of the sap. It's really that simple. And what that does is it saves you down the line for what you're reducing what you have to filter out of it down the line. And I'm going to get to that here briefly in just a moment. So you have your square stainless steel skimmer. Always remember when it comes to maple syrup making to stick with stainless steel. A lot of people out there talk about like galvanized things. Galvanized metal typically is going to have some lead in there somewhere. Solder, a lead solder or something in there. You don't want to use galvanized anything when it comes to when it comes to anything having to do with a heat source during the maple syrup processing processes. So you don't want to get like a galvanized bucket and throw some sap in it and try to boil it in it. You don't want to do that. You don't really want to use aluminum to boil sap in either. There's just certain things about certain metals that just don't go well when it comes to certain things like making maple syrup. Stainless steel, it's food grade, it's very clean, it's very easy. There is no transference of material into your product. That's why kitchens and restaurants and everybody around the world uses stainless steel in food preparation. And another thing to remember is everything that you're using in your maple syrup processing should be food grade. Food grade, food grade, food grade. So I've seen a lot of people using like a trash can from the hardware store to store their sap in. Those are not food grade. You might get some weird tastes with your sap sitting around in that bucket or that trash bin. I just wouldn't do that. Sap storage, use food grade 5-gallon buckets, and you can watch this in my other video. Or there's other water containers out there that you can purchase to store it in. So for the average homeowner, your storage really shouldn't exceed more than 7 days. Everybody is strapped with time, because everybody works, people work and all this stuff. So you're not going to be boiling every day. Not usually. I mean, you might. Depends on how much sap you're going to get and how diligent you are at getting that syrup done. But reality is you'll probably be boiling on the weekends. And if you keep the sap cold at around 38, 40 degrees, it should remain fine, quite fine, for 7 days until you're ready to boil. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so you've been skimming your sap. Now, you've been boiling your sap all day, and it's time to move into the beginning of the end phase, which is the final boiling process. There's 2 boiling processes to maple syrup. The second boiling process, pardon me, German tea, giddy up. So here we have a stainless steel pot. This was extremely cheap at a store known to sell some cheap stuff. Excuse me, turmeric tea. Getting out those impurities. Yeah, cheap. I think I paid $6.50 for this thing. It's an 8-quart. So you're going to take your sap off the main boiling pan outside and boil that sap down as far as you can, because that will reduce what you have to boil inside. So you're going to take that from the main pan and put it into a pot. But when you go to do that, you first need, my seat's a little squeaky, so you might hear that. If you hear that? That's my chair. Just so you know. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to filter from the main pan into your pot using a strainer. This you can get for $5 at any cheap store. And this right here is simply just a paper towel, which is taking place of an actual maple syrup filter that you should buy online or at a local hardware store, made for filtering maple syrup. Some people use coffee filters. I don't. I think it's a waste of time. If you're really going to spend all the time and the work into getting some maple syrup, you can buy a pack of filters for like $8. Just do it and get them, and save yourself the hassle. You trying to use a coffee filter with maple syrup, I would imagine would be, it wouldn't. I don't see it working very well, to be quite honest. So you take your filter and you take your clothespins. So you want to have some clothespins. Borrow them from somebody if you need to. Put that over the pan. See that doesn't move, and then you're going to pour your sap down in through the filter, and that goes into your bucket. This will be your finishing bucket. This is actually my first finishing bucket. I have 2 of these. I recommend having 2 because you're going to boil it down and take it inside. Take it, there it goes. It goes inside. Now you're inside. You're boiling that sap. Boil it down, boil it down, boil it down, boil it down. Boil it down as far as you can before it's syrup. And then filter it again into another pot. So have 2 of these pots. Filter again. When it comes to syrup, filter, filter, filter. It just saves having sediment in the bottom of your jar. Like this. This was my last jar of last season. This is sediment that absolutely doesn't do anything to the taste of the syrup. It really doesn't do anything. So if you don't really care, like I filtered the heck out of this, right? I'm still going to, actually I'm going to save this jar for quite a long time. I'm finishing up on what I have left in the fridge. But I'm going to keep this. This was from March 8th. This was the weekend before the COVID lockdown. They shut down all the sugar houses, no maple tour, and this was my last batch that I made. So that's that. So filter it as much as you can and as safely as you can. Now remember, you're dealing with very hot liquids here. Okay, you can burn yourself. So take precautions when it comes to anything hot. That means your heat source. Take precautions, and your hot sap or syrup, take precautions. Be smart. Don't burn yourself. And, use common sense, man. Common sense, right? I hope I don't have to go down that road to explain that. But what are you going to do? So, the last thing I wanted to just kind of touch on too is thinking about the containers that you want to put your syrup, your finished syrup in. And what I use is very inexpensive, and I would recommend using these. Now, I almost did go into another container style, but then I was thinking about it. I'm like, I don't sell syrup. I gave away a bunch to family and friends this past year. And I had left over, I had like a gallon and a half for the house here. And, we used just about all of it. We use it in the last, I use it in coffee and baking and pancakes, of course, waffles, what have you. But this is what I use. And I just showed you my jar, right? There's my jar. Just a canning jar, There's plenty of companies out there that make these. They last a long time. They'll keep your syrup nice. I like to buy these smooth sides in case I want to slap a label on there. Because you work hard at making your syrup and you want it to look good maybe if you're giving it away as a gift. You put a little thing on it. Jeff Outdoors maple syrup or something, Whatever you want to call it. So there's that. And then there's plastic jugs. You can go with a plastic jug. And these would be good if you have, this is a half gallon. So, you're really making some syrup if you're filling up half-gallon jugs, and good on you, because that's pretty sweet. No pun intended. These are nice. I almost went with these this year, but, I just decided last minute I'm going to use the canning jars and to heck with it. Maybe next year I'll get the gumption to get some nice little plastic jugs. This was one that I bought, and it's now empty. So that's that. Of course, you can also use, like a half-gallon glass growler jug, something like that. That's always good. The key is to make sure everything is sterilized. You want to sterilize your jars and your bottles, everything, and you're going to be bottling your syrup hot, like 185 degrees hot. So that's the other thing too. So that's something to think about. You're going to need some oven type gloves or leather gloves. I use leather gloves like these when I'm in the sugar house and moving my pans around, because I don't want to get burnt, you know. So that's that. Okay, so we went over the skimming, we went over the little bit on the boiling, and the filtering into the pots, and some bottling options when you're finishing your syrup. So maybe I'll get a little bit more in depth on the filtering process here next video. Gee, we've made it this far. I would love to see if you could just hit that thumbs up real quick. Take it, just bam, just do one of those. You know how to do it. You're on YouTube all the time. I appreciate it though, and I appreciate you tuning in and spending the time here in the past 15 or so minutes here. So if you have any questions, put them in the comment section down below. Glad to help out as much as I can. If you're a first timer out there, it's exciting. It's fun. It's a fun process making maple syrup, and I hope you have fun. I hope you really go after it this year and do it. Syrup's not going to make itself, and if you can do it, show your family and friends that you made some maple syrup. That's pretty cool. So until next video, keep me and my family in your prayers, and I will keep you and yours in mind. And appreciate you watching. Okay, giddy up.